Hey folks, Nick here from another BookTube channel. We are continuing the Swamp Thing read-along with Saga of the Swamp Thing number 29. Oh boy, did I really enjoy this issue. I cannot wait to get into it. If you are not caught up on this series, I highly recommend you check out the previous videos that I've put up on the channel, or pick up the first volume of Saga of the Swamp Thing. We've covered everything from the first trade paperback so far, so this should be starting up the second trade. Actually, I think maybe the previous video I did actually started the second trade, but either way, go ahead, read that first trade, watch those first videos, get yourself caught up, so that you can jump into this one and be caught up. So we start off with the cover by Stephen Bissette and John Totleben, and we are getting Swamp Thing and Abby in the eyes of a fly. We know that this is like the universal indicator of a fly's eye, and flies have been coming up. Bugs have been coming up all the time throughout the recent issues of Swamp Thing. Matt Cable, Abby Arcane's husband, had a run-in with a talking fly that invaded his body, and now he's acting very strangely, or rather, very normally, as opposed to the strangely he was acting before. So I think maybe that's coming to a culmination in this issue here. Also, really quick before we jump into this, you may notice that this book does not have the approval of the Comics Code Authority seal on the cover. That's because this is the first mainstream comic to not willingly submit to the Comics Code Authority because of the content within it. DC was really confident that because of how popular the book was getting already, that even without that seal, that it would still be carried and sold by vendors. Indeed it was, and so this book actually marks the beginning of the end of the Comics Code Authority. So we'll go ahead and get started. We open with some excellent narration. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to read this out just directly as it is, because it is fantastic. She ripped all of her clothes off, tearing them up. They were dirty. They'd touched her skin. She tried to burn them, but her hands were shaking and the matches kept going out. In truth, she was a little crazy by this time. It was the smell. She couldn't get rid of the smell. In the shower, she used up all of the soap, the shampoo, the bubble bath, the perfume. The smell was still there. Have you ever burned an insect with a magnifying glass just once long ago when you were a kid and didn't know any better? There. You know it. You know the smell. When the soap wouldn't get rid of it, she went to the kitchen and fetched the wire brush that she used for scraping the potatoes. 20 minutes later, she passed out. 20 whole minutes. Even then, she could still smell it. And through this all, what is going on? We see in that first panel in the living room area, the red shirt that we've established in previous issues of Swamp Thing. That's Abby's shirt. She always wears that red shirt. So we know that Abby is the subject here. She's ripped her clothes off. These are the matches that are still smoldering that she tried to use to burn the clothes. These are the soap and shampoo bottles. We see the bathroom floor with all the broken bottles all over it. And then we move over to the kitchen. So we're getting a tour of this house that's just been wrecked with stuff thrown all about it. And we get blood on the floor near the wire brush, and we see Abby in the corner, the wire brush in the extreme foreground with drops of blood still on it. And we turn the page, and we get this horrifying reveal that she's been going at herself with the wire brush. And even after all this, she could still smell it in her dreams. Love and Death is the name of the issue. Writer Alan Moore, with art by Stephen Bissette and John Totleben. Oh man, what an opening. And such a fantastic image here of just her curled up in the fetal position. She is bathed in this yellow light, but she's got this extreme red where there's hidden faces in there and bones and skeletons. And of course, her open wound where she was scraping at her skin. So what happened here? What's going on? We go back in time a little bit where Abby goes back to the swamp to kind of reconcile with Swamp Thing. He got upset with her in the previous issue for she kept calling him Alec, and he insisted, he's not Alec Holland. Stop calling me that. So they make up. He says, "You can call me Alec if it's easier," which thank goodness, because what is she gonna do? Call you Swamp Thing? If she's just your friend, you need to have a normal name. Um, so it makes it easier for her. It makes it easier for the readers as well to just call him Alec. And they reconcile. They make up. They have a nice moment. They share this hug, and she says as she's leaning into him that it smelled good, not like this, and then it crushes back into that extreme yellow light with the red, and we can see it's just all writhing bugs beneath her in that red. She's really going through it. She's experienced something after this wonderful scene with Swamp Thing. Let's turn the page, find out more. She's thinking back earlier when her husband Matt is surprising her. He's got 3 surprises for her, he says. And the first one is this big house. Their house was burned down recently. They've been living in a motel. So he was able to somehow pluck out this beautiful, enormous 2-story colonial home in the middle of Louisiana. He takes her inside for a tour, and we get a kind of similar tour that we got in the opening pages. Oh, you know what? I just remembered something. One thing real quick. On this wire brush, there's no way it's going to show up here, but I looked deep at this. There's on the handle, it's written Made in USA, Ostrander, and Truman. And Tim Truman and John Ostrander were the creative team on the Grimjack comic book. I've never read Grimjack. So if you have any idea why this metal scraping, the metal scraper was dedicated to them, please let me know in the comments, because I don't know. But yeah, so anyway, we're getting a tour of the house, and we see again the living room, we see the kitchen, we see the bedroom, and everything is a lot nicer looking at this time. Nothing bad has happened yet. As they enter the bedroom, we see a reflection of Matt and Abby in the mirror, and she's saying, how could we afford this? We only have my job at Elysium Lawns. And he says, well, that leads me to the second surprise. And look at this face. I mean, that's a sinister man right there. He's up to no good. And he mentions that he was able to just get it for a steal from the original owners. They wanted to move out quick. They left all their furniture behind because they didn't want to be bothered to move it. So, we got it for a great deal. So we go to the second surprise here. We get more shots of Abby in that yellow light with the bugs crawling all around her. And he takes her to his new job, he calls it, Black River Recorporations. And, he asks, so would you like to take a look inside, see my coworkers? So she goes in, she meets his boss, Eric Loveday, and he takes them inside to meet the rest of the crew. And when he first opens the door to the office, what Abby first sees is these like zombie people that just absolute figures out of a horror comic, you could say. But it's only for a moment. She blinks, and when she opens her eyes again, everything appears to be normal. And this has been happening for the past few issues with Abby, where she'll see something like with Matt, or in Matt's room, that looks terrifying, and then in the next moment everything's back to normal. So we've set that up as well throughout the previous issues. And she meets his coworkers. One of them is named Sally Parks, and Abby remarks that her name sounds familiar, but she can't place where. And so they leave. They say hello. They leave. And Abby asks, what's the third surprise? You said you had 3 for me. And Matt says, oh, I think I'll save that one for later. Let's go home. And so they go home to their new house, and they break in the new bedroom. That they are a married couple, and things appear to be going well here. But in her recollection, she's coming a bit undone here because she's saying, um, you know, Matt had changed so much, all the weakness and despair had gone, leaving a new strength, an unfamiliar confidence. And then we went inside. And then there was no. And then there was the no, it didn't happen, the bad thing. And we see that same mirror and we see their reflection again. And if you look really closely, something is wrong with Matt's face. Let's see if I can get it on camera. If it's going to focus for me. Let me try this. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, so his face, he's not, there's something going on there. He's not looking too normal. Refocus. There we go. All right. So yeah, something's going on. She's been tricked, and she is very concerned that she has done a very bad thing with a very bad person. And so she's still kind of dreaming this nightmare of what she's been through. And she looks so small in this panel here. And again, she's just being overrun with these insects, these red insects. And then we get here, and then just for a moment, she wasn't in her own dream anymore. She was in someone else's dream, his dream. He'd found a bird fallen in black grass that was sharp enough to cut your finger. Wretched and smashed, it lay like a bloodied shuttlecock. It was dead, but it was moving. Why was it moving? And we get Swamp Thing approaching this dead moving bird. And I love this layout. I mean, we'll just take a moment to appreciate just the beautiful scene that's been painted here by Stephen Bissette. Abby is taken out of this dream, and she's going back to remembering, before what happened. She goes to the local library to get some psychology books because she's working with autistic children. She would like to read up on the subject, maybe help her out. She pulls a book off the shelf, and a bunch come tumbling out. I did look up some of these titles. The Siege here by Claiborne Park, Claiborne Park is about autistic children. I think it is actually a psychology book about autistic children. This one here, The Profession of Violence, that's a nonfiction book about the Cray twins. So what that's telling us is she's also accidentally bumped into like the true crime psychology section as well. That's fallen out. I like this little moment here where everything falls and she starts saying "oh," and then it's cut off by another guy in the library saying "shh." So kind of censors them, because even though you could have all these terrible, horrifying things in this comic, you can't say shit. That's too much. That's bad. You go in timeout for that. So she's picking up the books that she dropped, and she sees here this one called Deadlier Than the Mail, The Facts About Sally Parks. And Sally Parks, that was the same name as Matt's coworker. That's peculiar. That's a little suspicious. I tried to find if these names were Easter eggs at all. I'm not sure. If you have an idea, let me know. Introduction by J.P. Shannon. Couldn't find anything about that. If you think you might know what that's a reference to, let me know. But she is freaked out by this, leaves the library without picking up her mess. This guy doesn't like that. Tisk. She gets back home, and she starts reading about Sally Parks, who, when she was 26 years old, in the last 3 months of her life, she killed 15 people for basically no reason at all. And she has been dead since August 7th, 1962. So now Abby is trying to figure out, hey, why is this dead murderer currently alive and well working with my husband? And she's thinking to herself, why hadn't she asked what recorporations meant? That was the name of the company, Black River Recorporations. And she's having this just crashing realization where, what about the rest of them? Betty Montclair, was she dead too? Eric Loveday, Gus Pritchett, Mark Newell, Matt? And she's, thinking now that, things have been different ever since, the trouble at Elysium Lawns, the night that they argued, even before then, since they were in West Virginia, in fact. What happened in West Virginia? And then from deep inside her, the bad things start to crawl towards the light. And she knows. She is remembering events that occurred with her uncle, Anton Arcane, who is supposed to be dead. More great insect imagery here. I also wanted to note on this page, we get a really good spider. Stephen Bissette created his own imprint a couple years after this called Spider Baby Graphics. And he has a very similar logo. Now she's thinking, she knows what recorporations meant. She knows which Black River heading where. I'm thinking the Black River is the river Styx, the river to the underworld. And she's starting to realize why the dead bird is moving and who looks out from behind her husband's eyes. The smell, the burning anthill stench of it. His name slams into her mind, and her knees buckle before its awful force. His name, a signature scrawled in acid. And she thinks, how long have I been married to? And she thinks, how many times did... And she knows what the bad thing is and where the stench is coming from. It is her. And she cannot tear the contamination away from her, or burn it, or smother it with perfume, or scrape it from her skin. And her dreams are wreaking unbearable things. And in this page here, she is actually completely being overcome. There's just the bugs all behind these panels that are smothering her. The amazing drawings of just coming unhinged, this horrible realization where all of the normal color is fading from this point to go into those yellows, bringing in the reds of the insects, and then it's just completely red and yellow by the time we get here. Just absolutely phenomenal imagery. And her waking is no relief. She gets dressed again, and she tries to run out of the house, and she's met by her husband and his grisly dead co-workers. And she tries to get out. They say, no, well, we'll take you just as you are right here. And she's saying, look, I know who you are. Oh God, look, please, what do you want me to say? And Matt says, what do we want you to say? Well, that's easy. Just say uncle. Oh, what a great reveal. What a great page turn. We get this is what Anton Arcane looked like the last time we saw him. A big spider creature, this monstrous face. We get the zombified characters back of the co-workers. Big insects in the foreground. Amazing color of the red and yellow background. Oh God, this is so freaking good. This is worth... If you're buying comics in, what is this, 1984 at this point, and you got to drop 75 cents for this bad boy, I would give him $1. I'd say keep the change. That's so good. What a great page. And shockingly, it's not done yet. I would have liked to just end on this page, but we do have to bring Swamp Thing back into it. And it's here that we see, and again, really quick, great panel where like his arm is kind of like coming out of her screaming mouth as it's reaching for this dead bird. And we get the reveal that the dead bird is moving because it's full of bugs. He thought it was alive, but it was full of bugs. It was full of bugs all the time. And that is where we end. Next up, a halo of flies as the flies go around this the carcass of this bird here. What a book. I love that it's juxtaposed with this really cartoony, silly ad. Only in comics can you get that juxtaposition. And an extra special bonus pinup by Steve Bissette and John Totleben, just in case you didn't get enough bang for your buck. An unbelievable, incredible Swamp Thing. Little birdie looking up at him. That birdie's not dead. That bird's doing just fine. So, yeah, that's where we wrap up. Holy cow. What a great issue. I saw a lot in this issue that I didn't catch my first time around, and I'm sure there's even more, so let me know in the comments if there's anything that I missed. Thank you very much for spending some time with me today, but now it's time to get back to reading.